Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this webinar organised by Resilience First. I'm Robert Hall, the Executive Director of Resilience First. For those of you who were unable to view the opening video, Resilience First mission is to help build resilience across business communities, whether those communities be defined by geography or special interest. Please do visit our website, resiliencefirst.co.uk, to see the many projects and events we organise in an effort to help your understanding and application of resilience. We have recently formed a strategic partnership with the Resilience Shift organisation, so both our reach and output have expanded for the greater good. Now, today we are starting our webinar series on decarbonisation and the role of technology in helping us to get carbon net zero. We believe that there are four discrete places where greenery meets technology, namely adaptation, energy efficiency, renewables, and carbon capture. So we hope to shed some light on all these aspects during the upcoming series. We are delighted to partner with Intel on this ambitious project, which consists of 3 further webinars during the rest of March, and then a white paper on the same topic for publication in May, ahead of COP26 in November. Now, the theme for today's webinar is decarbonisation in the context of urbanisation and urban infrastructure. In this session, we will look at innovative technological solutions which could support the attainment of the climate change goals within cities, whilst ensuring that these new methods are robust and safe. According to some experts, innovative technologies could advance the 2050 target for net zero by as much as 8 years and bring many new, highly skilled jobs to the market. It will come with a considerable price tag. London alone, £61 billion is expected to deliver, or needed to deliver, on plans to make London a net zero carbon city. But this is a relatively small price for an existential problem, and one that is much larger than the current pandemic. Now, to help us on our journey today, I'm delighted to welcome 5 people who know a lot more than me and most about the opportunities ahead. Our keynote speaker will provide us with a general overview of the subject, while the 3 innovators will offer insights on some technologies that will help us on our journey to net zero. To lead us through the proceedings, I'm pleased to welcome our chair for today, Ediz Altun, who is the IoT partner, sales manager, video and smart cities at Intel Corporation. Ediz will offer some opening remarks by way of scene setting, and will then introduce our other speakers today. Throughout the session, I encourage all those of you who are listening to ask questions of the speakers by posting brief questions in the chat box to the right of your screen. You can do this at any time, and the chair will pick as many as he can in the Q&A session, which will happen in about 45 minutes' time. So without further ado, Ediz, I'll pass the virtual floor across to you, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. Appreciate the introduction, and I'm delighted to be part of this session. So welcome everyone. My name is Ediz Altun. I am working at Intel as Smart Cities and Education Lead for Europe, Middle East, Africa, and India region. And today with me, I have some great speakers as well. I would like to introduce them first. So I have Ben Smith from Harup Group, Director for Energy and Climate Change Consulting. He will speak right after me. And then we have Nigel Stein from Dell, who is the sales CTO for EMEA and APJ. And I have Soraya from Milestone Systems. She's a Technology Partner Alliance Manager for Northern Europe. And then finally, I have Ariel from Agentvi, who is Vice President of Sales for the EMEA and APAC region. So with that, I would like to start with my presentation and talk about how Intel is doing in the urbanization and sustainability front. So to start with, Intel is committed to provide world-changing technology. Every day, our engineers, our research and development people, business development people is trying to create world-changing technology to enrich the lives of every person on Earth. And I think the word enriching provides some hints on sustainability, because we are not talking about something like providing latest and greatest technology, but enriching the lives of people, which also means that increasing the quality life, which implies environment-friendly and sustainable world in which the people are living in. So I think that's quite an important one in Intel's mission statement. And today we are going through a massive growth of data, and we call it era of distributed intelligence, because there is a huge demand for computing, and IDC forecasts that by the year 2025, 175 zettabytes of data to be generated globally. That's a huge number, and which also means that lots of compute power needed and lots of energy consumption needed. So how we can help on that front is quite critical. And when we look at this era of distributed intelligence, I would like to take you to a journey from where we started, right? So in 1980s, we were talking about digitizing everything, like moving the media to the digital environment, like music, videos, all kind of offline media can go into the personal computers. And then we have met with the networking in 1990s. Remember, we started to go into internet when we were talking about connected computers, servers, where people can talk to each other and communicate with each other back then. And the year 2000 and 2010, we met with the mobile devices, smartphones, where lots of data started to be generated. All the Facebooks of the world, Instagrams, WhatsApp, taking photos, storing them, all that kind of data started to be generated, and the data started to grow exponentially as well. And moving on, we went into the era of cloud everything. If not all, most of the data is now moving to cloud. So that's also a big disruption happening in the technology industry. And moving forward, we believe that we are going into this distributed intelligence, where we expect that 100 billion intelligent connected devices we are going to see, where PCs, laptops, smartphones, things, devices, everything that we interact with are going to be connected and communicate with each other. So that's the trend that we are seeing, and as Intel, we are trying to be leading on that front to provide the best technology for the citizens to enrich their lives in the upcoming years. Our mission is simple. We want to be trusted performance leader to unleash that data potential, whether it is 175 zettabyte or less or more, whatever it is. We want to be at the heart of it. We call ourselves a data-centric company to unleash that potential of that data to enrich the lives of the people. So moving on to the sustainability bit slowly. So Intel, whatever we do, we want to be responsible, inclusive, sustainable, and enabling. I'm not going to talk about the others, but just the sustainability piece, because in year 2010, we set ourselves some hard targets to address the climate change. And I want to share with you the results that we achieved in this 10 years journey. And I'm personally really proud that as Intel we achieved most of the goals. If I can give you some examples, in 10 years time frame, we reduced the total emissions by 39% from 2010 to 2020. And we did energy savings of 4.5 billion kilowatt per hour in 10 years. And we did started to use some alternative energy sources in our campuses. We actually implemented 98 installations in 23 different Intel campuses. And also, notebook efficiency is quite important. I think it's just an example, but it goes into the server and data center space as well. And I think this is one of the biggest value proposition of Intel to help decarbonization. Because we are not just manufacturing the most powerful processor, but we are talking about the highest performance per watt when we are manufacturing our chips. We are trying to bring the best performance as much as possible so that energy consumption is as less as possible. So we also started to use green power, and we reached our goal by 71%. And we did a zero hazardous waste goal, and we achieved that one in 10 years, which is great. And on the non-hazardous waste recycling, we achieved 93%. So these are some of the examples that Intel is committed to doing that, and we keep pushing the limits on that one and provide best technology to the citizens and enrich their lives by being environmental friendly and providing sustainability measures. So that will sum up my presentation for today, and I am thrilled to introduce the next speakers now. So with that, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ben Smith from Arup Group, Director for Energy and Climate Change Consulting. So over to you, Ben.
Thanks, Adiz, and thanks, Robert, for the introduction and for the invitation. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. As has been said, my name is Ben Smith. I'm a Director for Energy and Climate Change Consulting at Arup, and almost all of my work is done working with cities and city administrations, either directly or through some of the city networks like C40 Cities or the Resilient Cities Network. I specialize in sustainable development, climate change, and urban resilience. And I was going to start by making the point that whilst there are lots of technological solutions which are transferable, or climate solutions which are transferable, every city is different. Cities around the world have different land use patterns, different climates, different mixes of employment, different demographics and communities, different governance models and delivery models, and they're going to face different shocks and stresses now and in the future. And it's because of this that city leaders need to really be agile in responding to both the fixed and the changing context that they're faced with every day. They need to develop plans, lead advocacy, engage their citizens. They need to raise funds and drive delivery of the projects that they're championing. And of course, part of that is knowing about and being able to deploy the best available technological solutions. Many cities in the world are still growing. We are in a period of rapid urbanization. 3.7 billion people lived in cities in 1970. That number was 6.9 billion in 2010 and is expected to reach 9.7 billion in 2050. And with that growth, we're also seeing the global middle class growing as well. And we've just reached a tipping point now where over half of the world's population are now classified as middle class. So in terms of human and economic development, that's obviously good news, but it does present some challenges too. We know that as people get richer, they consume more, causing more waste and more emissions, and that there's a straight line correlation between consumption and greenhouse gas emissions. I think it's sometimes easy to think when you see these mega trends around urbanization that every city is growing, and I just want to make the point that that's not the case. So as annual urbanization rates increase in cities like in Africa, like Lagos, and they're running at close to 6% a year, there are also cities like Kyoto in Japan which have the reverse challenge, so a declining and aging population leading to issues of erosion of social cohesion. But I think whatever the starting point, whatever the context, cities around the world are now accepting that they need to rapidly reduce greenhouse gas emissions and at the same time increase climate resilience. The impacts of climate change through extreme weather events are being felt by cities all around the world. These impacts are hard-hitting and they're constantly filling our news channels. So you would have seen the city of Houston had 1 in 500 year flood events in the 3 years leading up to 2017. Cape Town narrowly avoided day zero when the city would have run out of water in 2019. And that's not the only city with water scarcity as a major risk on the city risk register. That's also true for London. Urban heat is being felt in cities around the world too. It's a major issue in Melbourne, where I lived for a few years, and it's being addressed in both London and Paris through the design of cool spots or green oasis schoolyards, a mixture of vegetation and water features, that type of thing, to cool things down. So there is a rapid need for decarbonisation. Cities need to position themselves on an ambitious trajectory towards achieving net zero emissions by 2050. And many are already setting more aggressive targets. There are now 1,000 jurisdictions worldwide that have declared a climate emergency. And I think it's clear that to have any hope of getting onto this pathway, cities are going to need clear plans. Often these are referred to as climate action plans. And C40, as I mentioned earlier, is in the middle of rolling out 95 of these to global megacities. But this same work, this same climate action planning is also happening in local authorities, in towns, in regions, and in states all over the world. And whilst we're on this rapid journey to decarbonise, we also have to think through the issues of transition and fairness. As countries and cities develop these plans, that point of equity really needs to be kept in mind, because there are some cities in the global north, like Amsterdam, which are already beginning to address consumption-based or supply chain emissions and are actively advocating to their citizens to reduce flying and to switch their diet towards more plant-based diets. But that is in the context that most urban dwellers in the world have never been on an aeroplane, and many are undernourished. So the luxury of shifting from one food source to another is really not in their minds. So we just have to constantly remind ourselves of the fairness around the speed at which places are developing and the need to sometimes leapfrog into decarbonisation. Robert asked me to talk about a few different things in relation to key opportunities for cities to decarbonise. I was going to start with buildings. Energy use in buildings accounts for the majority of greenhouse gas in most cities and is a significant source of air pollution. Often existing buildings are some of the biggest opportunities because they're often leaky and there's often more that can be done to improve them. So things like improving energy efficiency through retrofitting, new insulation, cladding, replacing windows, replacing building services. Often these things can deliver significant emissions reductions. Municipal owned buildings often offer cities an opportunity to show leadership. Having said that, decanting those buildings, often they attract good rental income, so that can remain a challenge, and we've seen that recently in our work with City of London. When we're designing new buildings, often these buildings have a design life of 30, 50 years or more, so it's very important that we consider the carbon impacts of that development, both in terms of the embodied carbon in the building that's being constructed, but also its operation and energy use over time. And not only do we need to think about energy performance of the buildings itself, of the fabric, but we need to think about how we supply those buildings through clean, low carbon energy. That could be utilising waste heat through district heating or cooling networks or ground source heating for the heat part of the energy demand of the building. And we also need to think about the power part, so thinking about wind and solar technologies and increasingly battery storage as well. Lots of different technological innovations that can help in this space, not least some of the new technologies around surveying, drones, aerial photography, remote inspections, thermal imaging, so that we can prioritize the retrofit based on where there's the most heat loss from buildings. All sorts of interesting networking and mapping tools that are coming online for citizens, communities and businesses to work together to try and spot the opportunities for more efficient use of buildings. So things like the extended schools model, where you have a school and in the out of hours it's used as a community hub, police station, that sort of thing, to get the most use out of the buildings that already exist. All sorts of potential been talked about for a long time around district level demand side management. linking to controllable appliances and building management systems, such you can reduce peaks on a network at any particular moment in time, sort of through smart controls. There's technologies coming along to reduce emissions from some of the top emitting industries in terms of construction. So that's cement, iron and steel, and plastics and chemicals. And more kind of innovations in respect to how we manufacture, design and manufacture. So you're creating less through modular construction, creating less waste in factories, thinking about circular economy interventions and so on. And we need technology also to monitor how we're doing with these new buildings, right? So there's a very well-known phenomenon in the building sector called the performance gap. We need to make sure buildings are performing to the way that they've been designed, and if they're not, we need to improve those over time. The Australian system, Neighbours, the energy rating, has just launched in the UK and offers one solution so that building owners can see how their buildings are performing in reality. Transport is another big area where emissions can be reduced, and in that sector we really need to make sure that we are following a quite well-known framework, which is to reduce and avoid, shift, improve and then adapt. So basically we're aiming to reduce the number and the distance of trips through compact and connected urban planning, so moving people out of the private car into active travel such as walking and cycling, and where that can't be achieved, promoting lower carbon vehicles, electric vehicles, and making sure that you're always following the hierarchy in the right order. So technology again comes into play there. We're seeing increasing use of phone apps like City Mapper, Ordnance Survey, walking apps, Slowways and things like that, which are launched recently. Through those apps, planners in companies like my own are able to do what's called agent-based modeling. So they're able to see demand on the transport network in real time and then plan for that, making sure that the services are as efficiently run as possible. And there's opportunities also to make sure that we get those transitions right between public transport and, for example, an electric vehicle through apps on our phone. Because if that transition doesn't work and we are rolling out electric vehicles and that's taking passengers away from public transport, then that's an unintended consequence. So we need to make sure these systems are all properly integrated and being used in the way that they were planned to be used. No matter what you do in the energy, buildings, transport, waste, urban planning sector, there's always going to be residual emissions when you're heading towards net zero. So carbon capture comes in particularly important. There's lots of different ways of capturing carbon. Not all of them are tried and tested, and certainly not in the UK. I just say that most of my city clients are thinking mostly about eco-sequestration through tree planting and rewilding projects. These are not necessarily straightforward to plan. You have to find sites, you have to work through the planting schemes to make sure you're delivering the right mix of benefits. It's not just about carbon, it's also about biodiversity, flood attenuation and so on. And you may have seen companies like Brewdog, the brewer, buying up thousands of hectares in Scotland to do just this, and they're not the only ones. Technology has a role there too in terms of surveying, site finding, and then mapping land cover and biological mass to kind of work out how much carbon is being sequestered in the soil. Conscious of time, need to keep moving. All the solutions I've talked about so far have all been focusing on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The point I'd like to make is that many of those measures, if thought about a little bit, can also have adaptation and resilience benefits and wider co-benefits. So, for example, if you're doing a retrofit for a building, think about how that could also be improved from a flood point of view, or to reduce flooding. Think about how you can reduce summer overheating at the same time that you're doing the overcladding, because we know that will be a problem in the future. When you're thinking about taking cars off the road, think about how you to use that space in the middle of our urban centres in the future, whether that's through parklets or urban greening projects. And the co-benefits aren't just about climate adaptation or physical resilience. They could be about physical and mental health through better, more active travel, walking, cycling, or they could be delivering economic or social benefits through job creation and skills development. So look, just to wrap up, to conclude, it's very clear to me that cities have a major role to play in the journey towards net zero. They're one of the key actors. often leading the way in terms of their climate commitments and the declarations about climate and ecological emergencies. They have to do that whilst they're also managing the needs of their residents. They have to demonstrate that their investments deliver tangible returns and are felt equitably across the city and across their residents. We know the key sectors that need to be focused on. We know technology has a role in supporting decarbonisation and resilience in all of those sectors. City administrations, I think, can be fantastic conveners in bringing people together. And I would just finish by saying that, we need to make sure that whenever we're presenting a technological solution, we do that in a way which is respectful of the local context, both from a physical, community and strategy and policy perspective, so that it's the right technological solution for the right city. Thank you very much for having me. Cheers. I'm going to introduce Nigel now. So Nigel, if you want to come up next.
Thanks, Ben. I think, are they going to, Robert, are you going to put my slides up? There we go. So good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time. And Robert's already introduced myself. So Nigel Steyn, sales CTO and the area that I cover is within Dell Technologies is emerging technologies. And emerging technologies, things like computer vision, edge IoT, safety and security, digital cities, smart cities. It's really interesting to hear what Ben was talking about there from a contextual perspective and understanding where these smart cities are coming from and going to. If I just take a step back from that and from a technological company, what I understand smart cities are. So smart cities are an integrated set of systems and services in which human capital interact by using technologically based solutions. So smart cities are an integrated set of systems and services in which human capital interact by using technology-based solutions. And the aim of that, the reason why cities are moving towards a smart concept, the aim is to achieve a sustainable development and better quality of life for inhabitants by addressing urban challenges. So if we look at smart cities from a technological perspective, we break it up into domains. And the reason I use that word domains is you get, for example, a smart environment, transport, health, education, energy, economy, living. All these are domains and make up a smart city or a sustainable city. And the speakers before me have touched on that. So if an interesting phrase that I've heard recently, and it's coming from one of the heads within Qatar. So I'm based down in Dubai, and I cover EMEA, and we've been engaged with Doha on a smart city project there. So one of the heads of the technology there said to me, Nigel, the source of my problem or the source of the ministry's problem can be in one domain, whilst the impact is in a different domain. And that's so true with smart cities. The source of the problem, for example, can be in transport, managing too much traffic or not low optimization of traffic, causing increase in carbonization, increase in sulfur, etc. And that's impacting health, it's impacting the environment. So how do these cities actually be able to measure that? And the way to do that is through technology. Technology is an enabler to a smart city. Smart city is a concept. It's an integrated set of systems and services in which people interact by technology. So technology is that enabling element. If we look at the challenges, and we touched on some of these, Ben's touched on a number of these. However, if you look towards the future, Abiz touched on how much data is being created. I hadn't seen that figure, 175 zettabytes of data by 2025. I mean, it's incredible, 175 zettabytes of data. Now, if you're looking at it from another perspective, they say by 2050, 75% of people will be living in cities globally. In addition to that, 75% of GDP will be coming from cities. So cities have to become smarter in how they operate across those different domains, and become more sustainable. It was mentioned, my hometown, Cape Town, heading towards day zero when there's no water supply. But the impact of zero water, we have to understand, in actual fact, what's actually happening and what's the impact. And that's actually on health in Cape Town, as in that West Africa. Health records and disease outbreaks can be correlated directly to the amount of water delivered or supplied. So it's very important to get that information together and understand. And of course, the evolving technologies. But these are all mandating the transformation of cities towards a digital technology. So how do we reduce energy? How do we automate processes, optimize traffic, and do predictive policing? So how can we use data to predict what's coming down the line? So all of this we're talking about, all of this can come down to, and from a technological perspective, two areas. We've got two different types of data sets in operation here. We've got telemetry data, which is structured data. I know that's coming from your sensors, but you've also got unstructured data. That's the data coming from your cameras. That's the data coming from your thermal imaging. How do you measure those two elements? How do you consolidate that, bring it together so you can actually start getting the right insights, start analyzing it? The two speakers that are following me from Milestone and Agentvi go into the detail around how do you connect to that, how do you manage that data, and how do you analyze that data. So it's well. So from a Dell Technologies perspective, we provide that end-to-end architecture where we can ingest all different data flows at the edge. Being at the edge could be a vehicle, it could be a building, it could be a bus system, etc. We understand how we are built as Dell Technologies on data lifecycle management. So the 4 points on the left there, 1, 2, and 3. Point number 1 is your unstructured, that's your CCTV cameras, that's your thermal imaging across cities. Number 2, your computer visioning, that's your video analytics. That's when you're wanting to run facial recognition and things like that. And the inferencing, and then your IoT. So to be able to layer this up on top is very important. Building on, now just what I'm wanting to do, I've only got 7 minutes, so I've got 1 more minute to go, so I'll quickly rush through this. But this is almost bringing it all together into what I like to call the art of the possible. But this is a front end that a city will use. So they'll be able to log on and see real time what's going on, for example, in their building management system, how much carbon's being created, how much electricity is being used over time. As this is real-time data ingestion and real-time analytics. But that breaks down into then, okay, your smart services bureau. You want a set of services. Now, it could be, it was mentioned, building management. This is all to do with building management, HVAC, air conditioning, lighting, parking, digital buildings. How do you measure that? So if you click onto these point solutions, then you start drilling down. This is purely the visualization of the data that we've captured, of the structured and unstructured data, being able to understand what's going on with temperature, being able to actually connect, monitor air conditioning units, not just one, hundreds and thousands of them from a central location is very important. Then this goes to your license plate recognition as a use case, being able to, from a single pane of glass, be able to drop down into that. So where do we start for the people listening on here? What I find is starting small. Every country, municipality starts from a different location, but we need to start understanding what the use cases are specific. Ben mentioned it. Each city has a different priority of use cases. For example, sub-Saharan Africa, it's all about water delivery associated to disease outbreak. In Qatar, it's all about carbon emissions and reducing that. In the UK, it's about transport. How do you remove that? So everyone starts at a different point, but can be starting small and moving forward. So I'll wrap up there. I think I've done 7 minutes, so that's me, and I'll hand over now to Soraya.
Thank you very much, Nigel, and thank you also to Robert and Adiz for inviting me along to this presentation. I hope, yes, there you go, my slides are there. Now, you've already been introduced to me, but I'm the Technology Partner Alliance for Milestone, and I look after and I work closely with our community partners for Northern Europe, so including the UK. For those of you not familiar with Milestone, Milestone Systems is a global industry leader in open platform IP video management software. Founded in Denmark in 1998, Milestone operates as a standalone company in the Canon Group. Over 500,000 customer installations around the world testify to our performance and reliability. With offices in 23 countries and presence in more than 150 countries, we make sure that we are never far away from our customers. Now, let me see. If we look at what our mission is, it's comprised of three different variables. So we're looking at the device compatibility, and our platform is hardware independent. It means that the operators can build a video installation that fits their exact needs and budget and makes use of the hardware that they already own, or we have partners such as Dell, which they can rely on. We have MIPS SDK, the hundreds of verified integrated solutions that are developed by a community of technology partners and showcased on the Milestone Marketplace ensure that a match between current and future needs are the most efficient technologies. And then there's the responsibility. The company took an active role in creating the Copenhagen Letter, a technology declaration developed by 150 people from various industries and signed by more than 5,000 individuals. The core message in the Copenhagen Letter is that we must ensure that technology is used in a balanced and responsible manner. Now, looking at the technologies that are being used at smart cities that are integrated with Milestone, instead of being tied to one company's product offering, Milestone's open platform has the ability to take advantage of an entire industry's innovation, increasing the value of a surveillance system. It offers the freedom to add new technologies as they're developed, allowing you to continuously update and improve. Technology advances at a rapid rate, and it is essential that you have a platform that's able to do that too. Now, cities, public and private spaces are becoming smarter, as you've heard, and you know, as governments and businesses and communities increasingly rely on technology to overcome the challenges from rapid urbanization. What makes a smart city or smart space is the combined use of these software systems, server infrastructure, network infrastructure, and the client devices to better connect critical city and business infrastructure components and services to help solve these challenges. To successfully deliver on the smart city and the smart space vision, Milestone and our open community of partners can play a vital role. So I'm going to show you an example from the UK of how we've been doing this, or how we can do this. And did you know that the foundations for a smart place already exists? And they fall into 4 categories. The camera point of presence. In the street, there is a camera installed on a 4 to 6 meter high robust structure, often with a wide-bodied base where network and power terminations are made. Co-locating other smart sensors and networks onto these existing structures reduces street clutter and removes the need for expensive civils associated with new installs of poles and columns and other mounting structures. Then there's a network connectivity. This can be cost-effectively converted so that all sensors and new networks can coexist with streaming digital IP CCTV cameras. Moving them to a shared network model moves this to a cost-effective way to connect. And in this proposition, the camera column becomes a street hub for smart devices, networks, and CCTV cameras. Then look at the command and control platform. The new street hub, now a smart network point for presence, was already connected to a CCTV control room facility for what was exclusively CCTV service. Integrating those sensors into a single command and control platform creates a new way to see the town or city. Data analytics and correlation will create added value by combining data from all these systems to create a picture for this information, and creating efficiencies by speeding up responses, ultimately leading to an improved quality of life for its citizens. And then the control room operatives. Now, moving the operators away from just CCTV creates a new model of operating. These trained users, now with extended skills, are key to moving the control room from a cost drain to a revenue-generating model. The control room can now provide enhanced smart city observatory services, for example, by bringing in online quality control, air quality control monitoring. CCTV cameras can be used to understand why air quality is poor. This combined technology will give the authorities the ability to quickly and cost-effectively deploy clean air zones, expediting the local authorities' carbon reduction programs. Now then look at, try and move my next slide, how these smart places are connected. And it's not in the future, it's already in reach. Operating a central smart observatory using real-time intelligence from Milestone and our community will drive value to the local authority in a number of ways, including 1, the ability to better see and understand how resources are used. 2, be in a position to quickly respond to what is happening now. 3, provide a way to share these services and costs, making new schemes more cost-effective. 4, be able to anticipate the needs and as a result, be better able to plan. And then you combine the data sources to create new analysis and reports on utilization across that area. It's clear that surveillance infrastructure is the foundation of a smart environment and provides means through shared budgets and using CCTV control rooms to do more. There's real opportunity to create inbound revenue streams to make CCTV a self-sustaining application, funding running costs and upgrading where needed. And that I will draw to a close and just hand over to Ariel for the next presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, should hear me now. Okay, so good afternoon, good morning, everybody. My name is Ariel. I'm the VP Sales for EMEA and APAC at Agentvi. What I would like to discuss in my presentation is really the role of video analytics and AI technology in this subject of decarbonization in urbanization and city infrastructure. First, a quick overview about Agentvi. We are an Israeli-based company established in 2003, and we are focused on developing video analytics, AI, deep learning, machine learning technologies. We have thousands of deployments globally, and we are based our solutions. We are basing our solution on an open architecture, which basically means that we are working through integration with third-party platforms in all levels, from the hardware part, for example, Intel CPU, to the server part, working very closely with Dell, to the application level, such as Milestone. I will discuss on the role of video analytics in 2 main aspects. The first aspect is the application layer, how video surveillance and video analytics can support the urbanization industry, mainly to enable customers, to enable city planners, to enable operators to monitor better, to get better information about what is going on and reducing carbon emission and other other instances that are causing pollution. These are only examples, traffic management, smart buildings, waste management that I will share with you. There are many more examples where video analytics can support these topics. The second aspect of the role of video analytics is how do you deploy analytics in such a way that doesn't cause by itself a lot of energy emission or carbon emission, because there is a big difference whether you are deploying a technology on a low footprint hardware versus many footprint hardwares, and I will discuss that in a second. So going for traffic management, again, as an example, one of the main challenges in city planning, traffic planning, is really to understand what is going on, how many vehicles, what type of vehicles, what is the average speed, getting all sorts of reports over time, basically to enable customers which sits in the city just to get better information. The use of AI technology enables customers to take their existing traffic cameras and really classify vehicles properly, what is a truck, what is a bus, motorcycle, and so on, and generate later on report daily, weekly, monthly on the information that traffic planners require. Another example more relates to smart building. Nigel mentioned it beforehand. There are building management systems. You need a way to support, to give a sensing information about how many people you have, whether you have people at all in a room, in a classroom, in a big campus or a concert hall, mainly to help managing better the HVAC system, the lighting system, because at the end of the day, someone forgot the lights on. What we are proposing, because many places are already deploying and have big infrastructure of surveillance cameras for security purposes, is to use the same infrastructure in order to use the analytics, use the AI, trigger an alarm, trigger an event, or trigger the BMS system in order to turn on, turn off the lights, increase or decrease the air condition according to the amount of people, and so on. A third example for the use of analytics is really to help waste management, basically by training models of different type of debris, trash, electronic waste, metal scraps, and just monitor cities or monitor sensitive areas where it is known that some people might dump their trash or their waste over there, and triggering alarms on this type of events. There are many more use cases covered by Soraya, by Nigel, that Innovi can provide. What I want to focus next is really not only the question of what you are doing with analytics, but also do you do it in a cost-effective way? Because we don't want to be counterproductive, meaning that we don't want to deploy a technology that requires so much energy or so much computing resources that eventually the net benefit is reduced. What we've developed and the way that we have architecture Innovi, our solution, is a distributed system that is based on a cloud environment. We have a management layer running on the cloud as a central operation system. And then instead of running expensive hardware, expensive servers with GPU cards on the ground near the cameras, we have developed an IoT appliance which is based on Intel OpenVINO infrastructure or SDK, which basically allows us to do all the heavy computing processing on a very lightweight and energy efficient IoT appliance. This appliance can be deployed easily anywhere you have a camera, you just deploy it in this appliance. It is doing the local processing of the local cameras, sending back only very low bandwidth data stream to the Innovi core, and then on the Innovi core we do further analysis, generating the data, generating alarms, generating all the actionable data that is then integrated to a front-end application such as the Milestone that is located anyway at the city or municipality control room. This solution, eventually, you need to remember that in order to enable AI technology, instead of running very expensive, very energy consuming hardware, you want to be able to run it on thousands, tens of thousands of sensors or cameras in a very energy efficient manner. That's all for my presentation. I will be happy to share more information later.
Thank you so much, Ariel, and thank you so much, Soraya, Ben, Nigel, for the great presentations. I think it was quite informative. So we have some great questions on the chat window, and I see some of them are answered by Ben. And I would like to bring those questions to our attention and, try to answer by ourselves. So I'm going to pick up on Mr. Hakan Noyan's question, as I think everyone can comment. So he's asking that what is the role of data privacy, like GDPR, considering the smart everything cities? Smarter services means also more data needed to be processed. Is there an approach to link carbon emissions and data privacy? Would anybody like to address that, or just talk about GDPR?
I can quickly touch on it. It's a very good point, because I suppose it's also very regional based. As I said, I'm based in Dubai, so different regulations across. I'm seeing across EMEA, but from a GDPR perspective, it's becoming more and more. When I say becoming, it is a very important topic. We're seeing in, for example, retailers from a safety and security perspective and a command and operational perspective. Retailers can get a huge fine. I mean, we're talking percentages of their total revenue if they don't protect their video data. Now, if we take it down to the detail, imagine exporting some video data, not knowing where that video data is, and getting onto. So from a video perspective, I see from a GDPR perspective and video, the regulations are very strict, and so they should be. About how long you can control it, what resolutions within the technology, and this is where you probably find your blockchain can come into play, where it provides that traceability and that security from the user, the actual user, to the data source, what he's going to be using for that. So within the technology, this layer of orchestration or access orchestration is critical.
Thanks so much. Anyone else want to ask for same question? Ariel, Soraya, Ben, any comments on GDPR and energy?
Yes, I would like to comment on that. At the end of the day, we are processing the video, and our responsibility to our customers and to the regulation. First of all, whoever is owning the data is his. So you need to allow access. You need to adhere to the GDPR regulation. In our specific case, one of the things that we are doing is, again, we are a cloud solution, a cloud-based solution. One of the things that we are doing is keeping the private data, the video data, the image data locally. We are not streaming that anywhere to the cloud. We are streaming only a metadata that cannot be translated to a private data about the person, and that allows our customers to guarantee their privacy and adhere to the GDPR or to other privacy regulations.
It is, I think, just to add to that, I think it's important to differentiate between the security and GDPR, so how the data will be used. So secure access to that data has to be controlled through the applications and the platforms that Soraya and Ariel have gone through, but also how the traceability, so the auditability of that data. And that comes in from the technological perspective, both the auditable trail as well as secure.
Okay, thank you. If anyone else want to continue, please do, or I would like to pick another question. So there was a question regarding from Michael Rooney. Is retrofitting cost effective? Ben, it might be maybe from your presentation that he might pick it up. Retrofitting from a cost perspective, can you comment on that one, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think on a tons of carbon per pound or per dollar basis, it's often more cost effective than delivering carbon savings through new buildings because there's so much more opportunity. Often the existing buildings are so much poorer performing, and therefore you can make rapid carbon savings, often for quite small financial interventions. Having said that, of course, there's a massive variety in the costs of these different types of retrofitting, depending on the type of building, its age, location, and so on.
Perfect, thank you. And also there was a question about electrical vehicles and charging units. Anyone want to comment on that? Yeah, please, Ben.
Yeah, I'll just come in briefly on that one. I mean, the questioner asks specifically about fast charging, I think, in developing cities. I mean, I don't have all the answers on this at all, but I spoke recently to the someone quite senior at Zipcar for a research project that I was doing. He was saying that actually fast charging on the edge of cities is not really fantastic from their perspective, from the point of view of car sharing, because what happens is people use the cars, run down the battery, and then they have to drive them out of the city to get charged and bring them back again, which means there's a labor cost. So actually what he was advocating for is much more just trickle charge on streets, in the places where the cars are stored. I think that solution would probably lend itself better to a developing city, where there might be a bit more of a shaky electrical grid. But yeah, that was just a quick thought.
Thank you so much. And there was another question. I think that would be the last one because we are approaching the end. From Bina Chester asking, have the tech solutions being developed with existing planning regulations in mind? Like maybe smart city solutions, when it is being constructed, do you keep the regulations in mind? I believe that's what she means. Okay. No, I want to pick that up.
Sorry, I missed the question there. Did you want to repeat?
Yeah, let me reread it, Ben. So she says, have the tech solutions being developed with existing planning regulations in mind?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I mean, that's an interesting question. My sense is that most technological solutions, and certainly many of the ones that have been described, sorry, I'm getting terrible feedback. I hope you've not all got that as well. I think they sort of overlay onto existing city infrastructure, so they probably sort of don't necessarily need different type of planning, or they can just work with existing planning regulations. I mean, I guess there would be some things where planning would need to be considered, but that hasn't been something that's really come to my front of my attention in this conversation yet.
Perfect. Thanks so much. So I think we are just about the close. So with that, I would like to say thank you to everyone who participated in this great webinar, and thanks for all the great questions that the attendees asked. I am personally going to follow up some of the questions which I'm not able to answer today. But thanks again. And I think as a closing remark, I would like to say technology is helping cities and urban environment in a better way so that we can provide more sustainable and energy efficient solutions. And great partners like Milestone, Dell, Agentvi, they are all providing the same, to provide latest and greatest, to provide the benefits for the citizens. And again, thanks so much for joining. And then I would like to give the word to Robert to close the session.
Thank you, Liz, very much indeed. On behalf of Resilience First and all those listening, thank you to all the speakers and the chair for an interesting webinar this morning. I also like to pass on our thanks to ADS Group, British Aviation Group, the Institute of Chartered Accountants, Institute of Engineering, Make UK and Railway Industry Association for helping us achieve the webinar this morning. We will be circulating a summary in due course, so please do join us for our next webinar on the 9th of March, which will be looking at the railway sector and its role in decarbonisation. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.